And after her Brave Shift, she is going to be focusing on true double-hand attacks with high bonus damage against humans and demons, as well as strong finishing abilities and extremely high meta-defining damage every single turn that she is active.
Starlight Elena is finally here, and regardless of what you thought about Yoshikiri, Elena was definitely the poster girl for hype. She was a unit that was already a fan favorite with her initial release. Her trailer had about the same impact as Remake Cloud, and they even said this:
extremely high meta-defining damage every single turn that she is active.
Well, on the bright side, they got some parts right. Alright, let's get into it. First up, her Trustmaster Reward. It's a hybrid sword that looks weaker than the first Elena's Trustmaster Reward, but that's because Aurora can be used with another weapon, while the first Ashreya was two-handed. It's as useful as the first Ashreya, meaning it can only be used by either Elena. As such, if you don't plan to use either Elena, you've got a dead weapon on your hands. But hey, if you do plan to use her, then this Trustmaster Reward will boost her hybrid damage, as well as their associated equipment stats by 50% when she's dual-wielding. It's pretty great, and will make you wish that this weapon wasn't limited to 2 units. Her Super Trustmaster Reward, Azure Radiance, is a materia that will boost your unit's equipment attack and magic by 150%, so long as they're holding a single weapon. It's a powerful Super Trustmaster Reward that's rather selective, and as a result, you may want to reconsider using a Super Trust Moogle on it, and look at your primary damage dealer first. Now let's get to her active abilities. Alright, we don't have Throw here, so that's a good sign. Aqua Lux Blade is an Aerial Ray attack that deals light and water damage. The damage output is rather weak. Lux Overflow will imperil the enemy's light resistance by 100%, increases all her light damage by 20%, and imbues light onto her. Aqua Overflow is the same thing, but for water. The imperils are pretty underwhelming for a Neo Vision. The elemental damage boosts are actually relatively high, and the fact that these abilities don't deal damage just seems strange. Revitalizing Strike is a brave ability that changes the Starless Ray. It'll give her a HP and MP regeneration for 3 turns, though it'd have to be upgraded if you want it to perform better. Gemini Blade is a Bolting Strike brave ability that will increase the damage modifier of Gemini Blade. Wow, I wonder what her damage rotation will look like. Onto her cooldown abilities. Stella Maris will inflict an incredible 130% water and light imperil, increase Starlight Elena's attack and magic by 300%, and completely fills up her limit burst gauge. It's also on a pretty good cooldown, though unfortunately, the turn duration buffs and the cooldown doesn't really match. Polaris is an interesting addition. It removes all boosts from an enemy, restores an incredible amount of Starlight Elena's HP and MP, and cures any status ailments and breaks. It's humorous that this ability can be misleading. If you're asleep, paralyzed, confused, or a statue, you wouldn't be able to activate this ability in the first place. But hey, every other time it could potentially be useful. Star Supernova is a Magnus ability that can only be used once. It'll boost her attack and magic by 300% for a single turn, and then charges the enemy with a powerful Bolting Strike attack. Next, her passives. She doesn't have any killers, though she has an impressive natural boost to her limit burst damage. She has a passive that's called Refraction, which can activate a Divine Ruination counter ability that will also boost her limit burst gauge fill rate. If you'd like to build her, let her dual wield and make sure she's carrying a sword. Merciful Aurora gives her a Guts buff, which is extremely necessary given that she has a relative lack of bulk. You know she only has a 20% boost to her defense and a 30% boost to her spirit, right? Well, onto her limit burst. Prismatic Punishment is a powerful attack that doesn't actually chain with anything else, unlike her first form. Regardless, it provides a boost to the damage modifiers of her other attacks, making it rather important in her rotation. Now to change forms. Her Brave Shift is only ready by turn 2, and it has a turn duration and cooldown. Well, active abilities. Christo, Shine Bright is a light Bolting Strike brave ability that inflicts a 100% light imperil and imbues light onto Elena's attacks. Christo, Purify All is the same thing but for water. Her imperil is still stuck at 100%, so for all intents and purposes, you can't really say that these abilities are much of an improvement over her overflow abilities. Evildoer's Beware will give her a weak demon and human killer, and then smacks the enemy. It's really underwhelming. The buff only lasts for a single turn, and it doesn't even chain. I initially assumed it was a passive, but nope, it's definitely an active ability. Cooldowns. She retains Polaris and gains 2 additional ones. Allow Me to Protect You will give your team an 80% boost to their water and light resistance, and that's all she does for your team. Everything else, the 30% boost to general mitigation and HP and MP regen, that's exclusive to her. Evil Must Be Vanquished will grant a powerful human and demon killer, smacks the enemy harder and gives an incredible boost to the damage modifier of Evildoers Beware, so it'll be more effective when you need it. Her Magnus ability, Light Shall Bathe the World, sounds kind of Evo. But maybe I've been playing Super Smash Bros. Too much, so who knows. Anyways, it gives an astounding 200% human and demon killer, increases her attack and magic by 300%, and smacks the enemy really hard. Unfortunately, the buffs only last for one turn, but that's what Mastermind Zon is for. Passives. Her relative lack of bulk doesn't really change. She doesn't gain any killers either, despite them being advertised as a central component of her playstyle. Overall, the only significant change is her build style. She could still dual wield in this form, though it's heavily advised to just give her a single weapon instead. But to be honest, her damage isn't very spectacular in this form. It's probably better to just stick with her regular form. And now her Limit Burst. Crystalline Spectrum increases her Limit Burst damage by 150%, boosts the damage modifiers of her other attacks, and attacks the enemy with a fierce blow. So which Brave ability should you prioritize? I'd prioritize Gemini Blade for its damage and constant use, then choose between either Crystal, Purify All, or Shine Bright for whichever element you prefer. Leveling it up will only increase its damage, not the Imperos, so it's not extraordinarily significant. Finally, do what you will with Revitalizing Strike. Leveling it up will increase its damage and healing factor, but that shouldn't be too significant of an issue if you have a proper healer or supporter on your team. Finally, let's create a rotation. I'll be using her as a light damage dealer, though you can certainly go with either element. Her forms have two different capabilities, one for finishing and one for chaining. However, I had to delay this video because I found that her finishing capabilities were really underwhelming, and I thought my math was just off. But nope, turns out if you want to make her really powerful, all you have to do is not use that form at all. As such, just stick with her chaining form. On turn 1, use Stella Maris, Lux Overflow, and Gemini Blade. On turn 2, pop her Limit Burst. This will provide the damage modifier boost for her next attacks. On turn 3, triple cast Gemini Blade. On turn 4, use Lux Overflow and double cast Gemini Blade. On turn 5, triple cast Gemini Blade. On turn 6, use Star Supernova and double cast Gemini Blade. From here, just continue forward from turn 1. To be honest, I initially tried to build her as a finisher, utilizing her Brave Shift to find that meta-defining damage. But then I discovered that was a lie. Her damage isn't all that extraordinary in that form, and just sticking with regular chaining is much better overall. Perhaps I've been hoisting her on a pedestal here, but we've been told that her Brave Shift had the capacity to do extremely high meta-defining damage every single turn. This form's damage is, in no way, shape or form, extremely high nor meta-defining compared to the finishers that we've got. That's not to say it doesn't have any use, as you could certainly use it as a finisher against humans or demons to an effective degree. But overall, her standard form's damage as a regular chainer is incredibly powerful. She'll take the top spot compared to other damage dealers, though she does have her own issues. She has a relative lack of bulk, but that aside, there's an even bigger problem at hand. Starlight Elena is kind of boring. She's lost most of the aspects that made the first Elena unique. Aurora and Blossom stance were an interesting concept that could have been expanded on through her Brave Shift. The split between chainer and finisher is a decent idea, but the fact that the two stances just disappeared seems strange. Furthermore, she's lost a few of her support abilities. The only remnant is an elemental resistance buff in her Brave Shift. On another note, she's lost half the elements she initially had. Finally, her advertised Brave Shift just isn't a stronger form, and it doesn't showcase the extremely high meta-defining damage we thought we'd see. Sure, her first form is definitely powerful, but so is every new unit. Well, this might just be a greater scale problem with the game itself, rather than Starlight Elena. As such, Starlight Elena is an incredibly powerful unit, and kind of lives up to the hype, I guess. If you wanted to get her, then go ahead. There aren't any incredible flaws to Starlight Elena's design. If anything, it's mostly just missing problems that would have added some flavor. In the end, if you plan to save and spend for Elena, I don't see why you would stop now. Well, to finish this up, let's do this free summon right here.